I'm going to call the meeting to order, and as I wrote to you, we need to have an executive session, which we just realized yesterday. So I will entertain a motion that we move into executive session to discuss negotiations. So, thanks, Brendan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will ask Beth to join us and we'll go to the conference room. And we are back in the open session. Patrick left at, I'd say, 6:50. He has a select board meeting. He's going to try to come back and join us, but he isn't certain if he will be able to. So, okay. So, are there any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Okay. Great. So let's move to the consent agenda. I'm going to pull leave approval because we don't have any leaves to approve. Do any board members want to pull anything from the consent agenda other than that? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda consisting of the minutes from February 4th and February 11th, approval of warrants, and the approval of Ashley Gray to K through 8 principal position. Liz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Thank you. All right, so let's move to the budget. And I'll remind you that tonight we will be asked to vote on the proposed FY21 budget. Brian?
Mark asked me to go through just sort of some of the more relevant slides. You can focus on anything that the board would like to. The purpose here is to take benefit of RETN and to provide just another avenue of information out to your constituents and the voters. So I'm going to flip through pretty quickly. This is information that's been up on our website for the last week and has been available to the board for that same period of time. On the proposed budget, on the short side of things, what we're looking at is an expense budget going up approximately 0.89%. We have the mandated statewide health care that's adding 372 onto it to give us a subtotal of expenses at 1.35%. Our revenue is going down, mostly from carryover fund balance that's declining. So that's actually an amplifier and kind of works almost like another expense for us, so that we have a net educational spending of $62.9 million, or about 2.51% increase. That breaks down so that one of the key numbers that your voters will see on the warning is that bottom number right there, which is 3.36%, and that's the percent increase in ed spending per equalized pupil. And that language and that percentage is specifically called out to be in your warning. So it's one of the comparables numbers all along. The building blocks, we've gone over some of the numbers. We are having a decline in equalized pupil. The 6th semester average for the tech center is going up, fortunately. Common level of appraisal is an issue that we've covered in detail. And then the incentive rate is part of our merger. That is declining from 6 cents to 4 cents. The weighted study, which we had previously thought was not something to be concerned about, seems like it is getting more attention, and the board will have some discussion around that this evening. This is some of the other data. This data is probably, though we continue to use it because it is the sort of the data of record at this point in time, it continues to change, and March 2nd will be a major impact on this, on what ends up being the yield, what ends up being the homestead property value, and so forth, because that's when we get the passage of budgets. These were all done by the tax commissioner, the 3rd of March. Just ahead of myself. I've included the enrollment projections. So from the long-term facility study, one of the actions that task team took was to move us and authorize us to seek out an enrollment demographic study of the district. It's been a while since we've had one. So we contracted with the New England School Development Council. A packet will be coming to the entire board as well as the long-range facility plan. It's a good comprehensive study. It gives some good information. It also contextualizes us with the rest of New England. It gives us some birth rates and so forth. But you'll see that, you know, we are, just like the rest of Vermont, we are projecting a declining enrollment over the next 10 years. The projections right now, using their methodology, show us that about 7.5% of our students going down. So that information, more of it, will be coming into your hands. The carryover fund balance that I mentioned, we had a very large fund balance in FY20. It provided some opportunities to make some one-time investments, but we're going down to now what I think is a more reasonable projection, and that we could probably see ourselves somewhere between $1.5 and $3 million kind of on a regular basis, but wanting to make sure that that's really tight. Equalized pupils, as I said, that we're corrected down to that. We actually have had adjustment 5 come out. Fortunately, we weren't adjusted in adjusted 5. Martha specifically asked me to make sure that we called out that we had some offsets that we were promising and we delivered on. So these, in the FY20 budget, we included an investment for social emotional coaches, 5 of them, and it was planned that there would be offsets. This is the math that offsets that $439,000. And there was also an offset for the investment for a collaborative leadership model for founders in Essex Elementary. Your action just hired that 3rd principal to be part of that collaborative team, and that was $145,000, and we did that through some deference. So, our instructional focus, it was mentioned at our last meeting that it was appreciated that we said what we were going to focus on. We demonstrated that we focused on it, and we have evidence now and data points that we're going to be monitoring the effectiveness of those investments. So we really targeted those high impact outcomes, literacy and math, and continue a deep and solid commitment to a PLC culture, and then also included continuing to work on our leadership structure and strengthening the SEL coaches. So I'm going to move through here. You're familiar with your own guidance that you gave to be responsible and so forth. Our instructional investments, this was our, as we began our budget sessions, we covered regular and special education. We talked primarily in regular, the driver is our staff, with our enrollment changing little, but changing pretty significantly among buildings. We see approximately the same number of classroom teachers, actually 1 less going into next year, but we do anticipate some changing of buildings, which was part of the promise of merger, that we would be more flexible, just like we've been with students and families being able to choose their own school. We've been able to now start to move our teaching staff to where there are demands. We did that internally last year, Essex Elementary and Summit and other places, to accommodate an extra large kindergarten class, but now we're actually getting some of the muscles to move staff among buildings. So excited about that promise of merger. Continue to make equity investments, so there'll be a continuation of the multicultural help desk that is here at the high school, continued work with Courageous Conversations, and some more professional development to support culturally sustaining pedagogy. Instructional focus, was our major investment this year, is the 4 literacy coaches being added to the 2 existing to give us a full complement of coaches at a grade level focus opposed to a building focus. So we'll be able to have literacy coaches K through 5 and adding a math coach to the 2 existing so that we can have grade clusters of math coach at K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. And it's a significant, almost a $500,000 investment to support our teachers in that way. And here's a demonstration of sort of an FY20 to FY21. Some background of why coaches, information about our commitment to PLCs and professional development, call out the attention that we spend approximately or budget approximately $800,000 a year on professional development and continued learning of our employees. And we're really looking to try to do some embedded targeted training to build capacity next year through our PDI, our Professional Development Institute, bringing in targeted professional development. This is a beautiful graphic on growing a PLC culture. Ask you to, it is available in the gift shop for framing. Strengthen and refine the leadership. This is work that we've been continuing to do. Some changes were made last year in FY20 and in FY21, converting the retirement in assistant principal at the high school, converting that position over to an instructional curriculum assistant principal, and then adding an assistant principal to the Essex Middle School where there's 428. Yep.
Brian, isn't there also a dean of students position at the middle school?
This is converting the dean of students. It's an unlicensed position, the dean of students.
Okay.
So this is converting it to a licensed
Gotcha.
assistant principal, which has infinitely more ability to function in supervision, evaluation, discipline, and that license. Yep. The instructional focus, what we've done here is with social emotional, we'll continue to work through the process that Dylan has laid out for you to see and move into viable curriculum and assessment and teaching methods, but we are looking to add 1 full-time SEL coach to the high school to the complement of the 5 that we have. And Beth has shared with the board that there is opportunity for us to work within the existing budget that we're presenting to possibly convert a guidance counselor position to an SEL position at the middle school level, which would afford us an opportunity to have a dedicated SEL coach at each of the 2 major middle schools. So that would be very exciting for us to have one across the entire district. This is that implementation process and where we are. That's a little animation that I've added there. So we're at, and it's not just the SEL coaches. We also have BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts, and we have the guidance counselors. So you can see we're building that capacity at the building level really to emphasize this aspect, support teachers and support students as well as families. In addition to all this, every school has a social worker. So that is yet another way that we support kids in crisis or kids at risk. So the instructional focus, really trying to spend about 75 cents on the dollar towards that classroom instruction, guidance, library, and so forth, and about 25 cents on the dollar over on school board, executive admin, principal's office, and so forth. And this is really central to the reinvestment strategy, where we went in and we really tried to move dollars from the administrative and other support areas into instructional supports and instructional programs. Instructional supports, that large increase has to do with all the usual drivers, but that's also where all the coaches are coming into, both the SEL coach that's added as well as the additional literacy and math coaches. So really trying to put our money first towards those high impact measurable outcomes of the multi-year instructional strategic plan. So operations, we went through that. I'm going to flip kind of quickly to the end which is property services, technology, transportation, safety and security, and business services. All of those, this was a lion's share of that reinvestment strategy to make sure that these operational issues were really right-sized for what we need them to do and make sure we're ready to learn, but where we could, to transfer those resources over to instruction and instructional support. So we've cut those budgets by about 5% across the board. Center for Technology, Bob came in, provided some information. It's continuing to be an offering of 12 programs. The enrollment currently is about 333. We do see an uptick on sixth semester, which will allow the center to continue to make investments, opposed to centers that are in a declining kind of spiral. And it's important to know that there is a lot of work that, that current projections are 115 students will earn college credits while they go through their program this year at the Center for Technology. And that their Fast Forward program makes it so that it's simple. The credits are actually bestowed right upon the courses that are taking place right here in the Technical Center, making it more accessible, not requiring additional transportation or logistics. That's increasing modestly at 1.8. This is the sixth semester, so we don't pay based upon who is attending in a single year, but who has attended over an average of 6 semesters. And the total budget that will be on the warning is $8.4 million, or about 3.7% increase. And that is on the warning that you'll take action on tonight. What it means to us is that their tuition is projected to go from $17,000 for a full-time, full-year program to $17,561, or about a 3.3% increase. And our six semester average is increasing by almost 6%. So Essex Westford School District is taking more advantage of the great programs, and therefore our tuition rate is going up, the overall percentage per student plus the additional students that we have. So the district only pays for its use of the technical center. Otherwise, it's paid for by the whole region. Enterprise funds, just quickly, those are child nutrition, which is anticipating a balanced budget, though I have informed the board that we really need to understand what happens with the mandated statewide health care and what that impact is going to be. It's projected that it will be most significant on this labor force. Skating facility, projecting a balanced budget, and the Skill Tech program, which is adult education, industry certifications, and adult training, is anticipated to run a small surplus. They use those surpluses for reinvestment into equipment and program generation. So projected tax impact. So what we do is we do the same math. We take our proposed expenses, which is what will be on the warning. That is our appropriation amount. We add in, actually this is the amount that will be on the warning, $82,585. We minus the offsetting revenue to get to a net ed spending. Then we take that net ed spending, we divide our equalized pupil FTE into it, and we get an ed spending per equalized pupil, and that number as well as that number are also on the warning. And we take the statewide yield calculation, we divide these two into one another, and we get a homestead tax rate of $1.526, or about a 1.13% increase. Then we take that number and we have the Act 46 incentive rate, which is changing and declining by over 30% from 6 cents to 4 cents, and we come up with an incentivized tax rate of $1.486, or about a 2.56% increase. Projected. This is just a quick comparison to what the state estimates were back on December 1st, and you can see that we're, despite our larger change in equalized pupil, we're still significantly below those at least original estimates. But then we also have to take a look at the common level of appraisal. There's a significant change, a 5% change for Westford from year to year, FY20 to FY21. A more modest change for Essex Town and Essex Junction, about 2.5%. This is some information on the common level of appraisal, but the biggest thing is that declining CLA means that the investment homeowners have made in their property is increasing in value. And what we have here is the projected tax rates after CLA. And we have Westford at $1.626, or approximately a 7.83% increase. And then the town and the junction are the same, work on the same grand list at this point, the $1.617, or about a 5.11% increase. If we take a look at this slide that has incredibly small numbers in it, this is the slide that we've recreated and allows you to see going back to 14-15 compared to 2021. Basically, the state has calculated that property values in Westford have increased by approximately 11% over that time period, 9% in the town and 8.89% in the village. Since they've increased, and it's a statewide property tax and not a local property tax, that's the CLA factor. So if we looked at after CLA, these are the numbers we just talked about, but if we take the CLA out, which in effect would be saying that if you bought your house in 2014-15, that it is worth no more or no less than that exact same time right now in 2021, that your investment hasn't appreciated or declined in that investment. And at that point, you would be actually paying less property taxes in FY 2021 than you were paying in FY 14-15. And that holds true for each and every community. So it is, and what's interesting is to look at, with the home values increasing between 9% and 11% since 2014-15, tax rates are projected to keep pace and increase in a range of 5 to approximately 8% in FY 20 to 21. So it's there's income sensitivity program, which is about 68% of our homeowners and taxpayers pay based upon some combination of income sensitivity. And that is for all communities. It's regardless, and it is only for school budgets. It's not for municipal budgets. So that information is going from FY20, it was 2.36. It's going up to 2.41, or about a 2.35% increase. And the way that you work this is that for the 70% of taxpayers, it's projected that they'll pay 2.35% of their income in educational property taxes. So if you have a household income of $60,000, which is just above the median tax filer in the state of Vermont, so the entire state, could expect to pay around $1,400 in annual property taxes next year, whether they live in a $200,000 home or a $400,000 home. And then,
Brian,
yep.
you should probably note that those numbers are also projections because the legislature has to set the yield for that as well.
What's the budget?
So we won't know until May how good any of these projections are.
And we have our annual meeting at 7 p.m. on April 13th and Australian ballot voting on the 14th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay, so what questions do folks have? We do need to approve the budget and approval warning this evening. We've been talking about this over the course of 7 meetings, I think. So what last questions do folks have? Nothing. Okay. Does anyone Brian, could you put up the budget number, please?
Would be this number, 82,585.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion that the board approve an FY21 proposed budget for the school district of $82,585,985. Al makes the motion. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Okay, so note that Todd votes no. And Patrick's absent. Yeah, I think she's got that. Okay, we now need to vote on the Center for Technology proposed budget. So I'll entertain a motion that we approve a proposed budget of $8,450,019 for the Center for Technology Essex. Al makes the motion again. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Okay, so I think the next thing we do is to approve the warning. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so Keely?
I still have a concern that Article 2 is grammatically incorrect, despite being exactly what we approved last year. Somehow I didn't notice last year. Either there are 2 or 3 groups giving reports. So either there's the Essex Westford School District officers and the Essex Westford Board of School Directors, or there's the Essex Westford School District, the officers of something, and the Board of School Directors. There should only be a comma between district and officers if there are 3 entities. If there are 3 entities, we should have the or its or something preceding officers. If there are 2 entities, we should get rid of the comma.
So I think the question, Brian, and forgive me if I don't remember, does the treasurer, we don't publish a report from the treasurer or the clerk?
No.
So I wonder if we can take officers out of
I
it.
assumed officers meant people like.
No, I think it means the clerk and treasurer. But maybe to be safe, we should add the. There. Okay. You've all had a chance to look at the warning, both at the last meeting and in the materials for this meeting. Is there anything else that needs changing?
These are the 2 money articles here. And then we have the 3, or the school board election, officer election, director's elections here.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the annual meeting warning for the school district. Okay, Andre makes the motion. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, I am going to pass around the signature piece. So this is just signing that this is the warning that was approved. Okay. All right, so next up on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Does anybody have any questions of the report? I feel like because with an extended executive session that I won't read it to you, but I am more than happy to answer any questions.
I just had one question.
Yep.
In reading through all the various goals, it just strikes me that since literacy and math, K-3, 4, are important, and since we're on a 5-year plan, why shouldn't we have a 20% improvement per year for all of our major goals?
So for those measurable outcomes, you mean?
Right. Student outcomes.
For the student outcomes, well, for the literacy and mathematics, I put it as all, and yes, we should see an increase, but I worry about putting, we want 20%, because that I worry about that being that frame in a teacher's mind is it's 80% that I have to increase.
Understood, but I think I would have some sort of expectation that there be some targeted improvement every year, and that we should get feedback on that level.
Well, right, you will see improvement if we improve. Hopefully we will. And actually, we're looking at winters, and we're seeing great gains, which is really exciting to see and have the principals talk about that. I understand where you're coming from. I worry about setting that and then that being like the limit for people. I want to stretch people.
And I think it isn't always going to be linear.
Understood. It just that we should have some idea
We
of,
should start seeing some improvement as we make these investments.
right.
But you can't make the investment tonight. That
Understood.
doesn't start till next fall.
Understood.
And expect improvement in next October. Right. Okay.
Just like the date.
Any other questions on the superintendent's report? I would just comment that I love the piece that the fourth graders at Founders
Yeah.
did, advocating for the homeless with the legislature. And it was exciting to see that a high school student wrote the article about it.
I
So,
agree.
yeah,
Yes.
that was excellent.
Yeah. That's having a voice.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Next up is testing updates. Liz?
Yeah, so I'm going to pass around these. Take these. What I'm passing around is the proposed design for the budget mailer that we'd like to approve tonight. The numbers are not in there, but now that we just approved the budget, they're super easy to plug in. It'll take Ben 2 minutes to do, and so what you're looking at is what will go out in the mailer, and so tonight we're hoping to get approval from all of you that this is what we want on the flyer. While I'm passing them around and you're looking at them, this is really just about design. The content on here is part of a discussion about how we're trying to engage the community beyond just the mailer. So we recognize that not all of the information, oh yeah, sure. Here, you can have this.
Thank you.
Did you get it? No, you. So just keep in mind that what we've been talking about over the past month or so is that this is just one piece of how we're trying to get the information out to the community about the budget. We'll get next to the board engagement that you all received about signups for events that are happening in the community. And the first two events that are on that sign-up sheet are tomorrow and Thursday. So we'll talk about what could be at those tables if we're able to do that. But what I want us to look at first is the design and see if we like that. Any questions or comments about the design?
Well, we aren't doing the capital reserve fund anymore.
Okay.
So that section needs to come out.
Okay. Anything else?
Is there something else that should go in there since we have the spot?
Yeah, Ben and I have already talked about some of the top line numbers from both the warning as well as some of the other.
Okay. To insert in that space?
Yeah.
Okay. So are we good with that? Or people feeling good about the mailer? Comments for the public about it? Al, did you have something you wanted to say, or?
Well, I've said right along, I believe the total increase for both the school expenses, the 0.89%, and the tax increase.
So let me address that by saying we have a plan to go out to these events, and we have 7 distinct handouts that we're hoping to have as part of our presence at these community events. So one of them is this, which is all of the numbers that the community needs to know and what, in fact, we will be voting on when we go to the polls, and what we have control over. These are numbers that we have control over. We're also going to be providing information about please volunteer at our schools and how to do that. We're going to provide information about the promise of the merger and how we have worked towards fulfilling that promise. We're going to draft a piece on what the investing in literacy has looked like and SELs and that investment, a distinct flyer handout about that. Keely is working on a piece on why we might see higher taxes and what that will look like as a distinct handout for people to get their heads around tax projections that, just to remind ourselves, we don't control. So it's not something that we vote on, but it is information that is relevant to the community that we'd like to provide. And then also how to run for a seat on the board. When we look at the timeline, some of the events we've chosen, it's too late really but some of them are far enough in advance that there's enough time to get your petition and run for office, and we hope that people do that. And we'll also have some blank cards with prompts saying, what do you want to hear about? What would you like your school board to give you information about? So it's a plan to provide information so that the information is not just on the flyer, but we'll get it out. And again, as you know, and as I have said it a lot of times, but so grateful for Ben. He can turn stuff around by tomorrow night. If we want to go to ADL tomorrow night and have handouts, we can do that. So this is what our plan is for engagement and for getting the information out. And if we just go to, do you have that sign-up sheet on there by any chance? I didn't send it. I did send it to you, but I didn't share it for you tonight. I'll share it with you right now. Any questions about that so far? Does that all make sense?
Just add that the reason that we want to have a lot of flyers available is not necessarily because everyone wants to take lots of pieces of paper, but also as a support to all of us board members who will be standing there engaging with the public, so that you don't feel like if somebody asks you a tough question, you have to think up how to describe everything about the budget suddenly. So that if somebody asks a tough question about, how is the merger working? You can direct them to the handout about the merger. And if they ask, what exactly numbers am I going to be voting on? Then you can hand them this card. If are my taxes going to go up? Then they can get information about cost drivers that may be increasing tax rates. So it's kind of you don't need to feel like you just have to go and come up with a spiel about everything, because hopefully most questions will be answered in documents.
Yeah, Brandon.
I love the idea of having multiple handouts available on different topics. Will they also be available as PDFs on the website?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, Al.
I just had one final comment. The information is kind of buried on the school website. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, but the information is there on the website. When you're getting the flyer, I think people, at least in my experience, would like to know roughly, and to calculate in assessed value how much that increase will result in property taxes. And we're not providing that information that way. With the kinds of potential increases that are coming towards the board from the healthcare, from the 13.9% increase, and this,
12.9.
and the other changes and studies that are going on, these could be significant increases to the community in the very near future, year, two. And the sooner we start publishing what the impact is of these changes, a lot of which may not be under our control, I think it improves the integrity and the communication between the board and our public. And that's why I've advocated for a different kind of information on the flyer.
So, the flyer that I've been drafting does mention potential top percent increases. However, offering an example based on assessed value, you would have to contextualize it so much. Like, for instance, the 5.11% number we see for Essex Town. If you own less than 2 acres in Essex Town and your household income is over $148,000, then that might, if the state yield number doesn't change, be the number you will see.
Right.
But most people in our community don't have household incomes over 147,005 or whatever the top limit for some income sensitivity is. So that is scary information that's not relevant for the vast majority of people. The information about the median income, I mean, our area median income is probably higher than the state as a whole, but that's closer to the real experience of more people in our community.
I just think we could do a better job somehow.
So, Al, I think what is confusing sometimes is that municipal budgets can be translated
Right.
in exactly the way you're talking about, with some estimation about what's going to happen to the grand list. But that makes it a much closer calculation than anything we can do, because for a lot of people, certainly in the town, and I'd say almost everyone in Westford, because very few people have only 2 acres, it's a complicated, multi-step calculation.
I know, but
And,
I haven't given up.
And I think this year, even better than previous years, I think we're getting better and better each year with making the information really accessible on the website. And the information is tagged that way. There is information there that gives projections that people who are looking for this information, I don't know what your accessibility issues are. I find it this year, the budget information, to be super accessible. And and when we're tabling, that's another thing. If you're stumped, there's a bunch of things to say. All the information is on the website, and you can get in touch with Brian, and here's the phone number, and here's the website, and be able to say, we are your board members, and here's where you can find the information. So moving towards this, so you'll see that the first 2 dates are the ADL basketball tournament, which is a huge event in our community, as we all know. This is the 50th year.
Had we talked about doing Friday and Saturday, or were they
Well,
not
I
available
called
then?
the school and asked, and it turns out that the Essex community is playing on Wednesday and Thursday. So to be there Friday or Saturday when all the regional schools are there, but the parents of those kids are not going to vote on our budget.
Gotcha.
Kevin said the best bang for our buck is Wednesday and Thursday. We are welcome to table at both of those events if we want. We don't have to do this tonight. Tomorrow, I'll look at it in midday and see where people are with this and see whether we want to go ahead with the Wednesday or the Thursday. I wanted to just say that those first 2 dates, the flyers are not ready. The board hasn't vetted them. We haven't looked at what the language is around what those handouts are. When you look at the timeline, we have plenty of events scheduled that we can give those, but for the first 2, what we really only want to be providing to the community is the budget, the numbers that we've approved tonight, and the card saying, what do you want to know about? Because all of the other, none of you have seen it yet. We don't want to start putting out information from a board that none of you have seen. So because we're not meeting until March 10th, the idea is that our committee, Keely and Pat and Ben and I, will work on putting together these flyers in distinct one-page flyer language that we will share with the board and get approval online that we're good with what we're going to be presenting. So just know that if you sign up for those first two, your job will be, we approve the budget and here it is. And if you want to know, there's your card. The following events from the 29th to the 17th are going to be populated with those handouts that we spoke about. Yeah.
So at some point in time, you'll be giving us a box of material to hand out?
Yep.
Well, not
So-
a box, but.
Yes, exactly. So when you sign up and on there, I will follow through with you and make sure you have what you need to go to that event. And if anybody wants to do tomorrow, just let me know because I have the details about what they want at the middle school and Kevin just wants a heads up about who's going to be there and when. If the basketball tournament is where we want to have some presence in the next couple of days.
Chocolate
You're
coins?
saying Kevin.
Kevin Barber is the athletic director at ADL.
I
Sorry.
thought you were talking
And he's running the
principal
basketball.
at the end.
No, I'm sorry. He's running the basketball tournament and he's the one that.
Okay.
Chocolate coins?
Sorry?
Chocolate coins included? You got one when you ask a question?
Questions about this. Okay, so take a look at it, sign up, or you can put me on the Westford Town meeting.
Okay, great.
I also signed up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
When is village meeting?
Village
I
meeting.
think it's the same. No, it's,
Yeah, I think they will be.
Oh, yeah, April.
April 1st.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
April 1st. Sorry, I'll change that.
Sure.
And it's ours at 7 o'clock because dinner's at 6.
April what?
I'll be checking
What did we just
people
say?
in, so
First.
I'll be checking people in, which is why I said I can't, it's a conflict for me
At
to
7
do
o'clock,
that.
did you say?
I can't do that and register people at the same time.
Thanks, Tilly.
no, you can't. Okay,
Okay.
so
Yep.
think about it, sign up if you can.
2 more updates from communication, moving on, are we done? Okay. One is the View, the Voices for Inclusion for Essex and Westford had their viewing of the Hate You Give at the auditorium last Wednesday, and it was fantastic. I don't know if you want to say anything about it, Tilly. Tilly was there, I know, and there were about 50 people who attended, and just real briefly, the film was they showed the film, and then there were some comments in the beginning, and in the end, we all had some time to reflect on what we had seen, and we spoke in groups, and the takeaway was that I think everybody felt like it was a really.
Yeah, definitely. I think the turnout was good and everyone left with a good sense. Like, we had good discussions, I think. Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like there's some momentum in the community to have these kinds of events and to have this kind of dialogue. So that was really good, and thanks to all the organizers of that.
And a variety of ages,
Yeah.
from students to elderly, which I
Nice.
appreciate it.
I do too, and I've been to a bunch of these before, and oftentimes after the film ends, people leave. Nobody left, and everyone really stayed for the discussion, which was really, really cool to see, so.
And did what they asked, like people got up and moved
There
to
were
talk.
prompting questions and small groups, and sometimes when
Sit alone.
people tell you to turn and talk at that hour, people really freak out, but this was really well received, so thank you to all the organizers. And the other update is that the Black Lives flag was raised today. I don't know if any of you saw it when you
Yes.
drove in today, but the ceremony was lovely. Were you guys there?
Yeah, I was remembering.
Anyone want to say anything about? I was there.
It was really awesome. We had a student speak, and one of the
Christine.
She came in as a speaker,
Yeah.
and the woman who runs the multicultural booth in the library, she was there.
Tiffany, yep.
Yeah, and we had food and like that teachers brought in. I heard, and hot chocolate, and it was really nice.
It was really nice and well attended, and a really nice celebration of it. And the student speaker spoke about the efforts of coming to the board and making that presentation. I just want to remind ourselves again, and we'll talk about it in upcoming agenda planning meetings, about revisiting our guidelines and seeing if we really want to have them come up every year and explain why it's important. That has come up now 2 years in a row. So when we want to address that on the agenda, I was thinking that while I was watching the flag come up today. So.
Okay. Questions for Liz? Kim, do you want to say a sentence about negotiations?
We've begun. So we had the first opportunity to share our proposals with teachers, and our date to do that is March 10th with support staff. So we embark on it in hopefully what is viewed to be a mutually respectful manner with people whom we've spent a good deal of time working with over the last several years on these challenging issues that sort of set the guidelines for the work that they do every day. So we are looking forward to a good process.
Okay, great. Anything else under testing updates? I can't think that there is. So let's move on. Before we move on, this is not really testing updates, and I meant to mention it under the superintendent's report. And I was guilty of this until 5 o'clock today, but Beth put out a doodle poll for some dates in April for our training around policy governance. And I think only 4, maybe 5 of us have responded. So if you could go back and find that email from Beth and fill out the poll, that would be extremely helpful so we can nail down the specific date and time and get it on Val Gardner's calendar. Beth, maybe you can
I'm
find
going to resend it.
You're going to resend it? That would be helpful. Or tell us the date that the email came out. Kim?
I'm looking at it right now and noticing that some of the dates are before we will have the new board member.
Right, that was when I put that out there, I did not want that to distract from actually starting. We had said that prior to. I know
Okay.
Haley was like, I don't want to, we knew that she wasn't going to return, that we will have a new school board member, but I wanted to get those dates out there. So I think when we get the dates, then we can make sure that the new one is on board, if everybody can make that, because we really need 100% of the board before moving forward with it.
Well, and one of those dates is, I think, during the school vacation.
Yes, it is.
Two,
Yep.
because it's morning and afternoon possibilities. So That doesn't matter to me, but I did think that it's going to matter to some board members.
School vacation, because I thought it was the last week of April.
Yes.
So this is, all those dates are before school vacation.
No, I think April 24th is.
The 20th is the first Monday.
20th to the 24th.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not the last.
Right.
No, it's the 3rd.
Yeah, it's the last full week. Okay. Local and statewide updates. So I did send you the proposed letter to key legislators on the waiting study. I don't know if you saw that I added some comments from Erin McGuire that she sent me about maintenance of effort. Are people comfortable? Yes.
I thought Aaron's additions were excellent. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, it was excellent. I agree. And I told her so, of course. Al?
I had two concerns. One of them was just the magnitude of the increase was a huge concern. Now, when Erin sent out her update, she mentioned MOE, and I was going to suggest that it actually be spelled out as maintenance of effort.
I think she did, and she definitely did in the beginning.
I think the first time she says that,
Yeah.
there's two paragraphs
Yeah.
that her comments covered are in two paragraphs. I'll double check it out.
Yeah, I got it at the last minute and
Right.
didn't have. And the other question that I had was, I've read the study, the 42 pages, and in a rural, we have such a mix within our district between poverty, rural nature, just the range of how does that study fit our district so that we end up being treated fairly in terms of any potential? Because this is potentially a if we lost 25% of our ed funding, that would be an enormous impact to this district.
No kidding. Right. Yeah. So I think, one of the issues is that there's been a lot of consolidation across the state.
Right.
And in those consolidations, there is more mix. If Westford were by itself,
Yep.
it would be rural. If Essex Town were outside the village, were by itself, it would be
Urban.
more urban.
Right.
But it has a rural component.
But how,
The village is obviously pretty urban. I think the most we can do at this point is put our concerns in front of the legislature and ask them to
I think
about
that's an absolutely valid point in terms of being evaluated fairly because of this mix of the district. And the other thing, there was no really reference in this letter to Act 46 and the consolidation of districts and what we're trying to do and continuous improvement plans and everything else and the investments that we've made. So there's a huge number of things in terms of input. And I'm sure we'll have time to do that, but
to talk about the merger and the fact that we had used the merger to get as efficient as we could. And I talked about
Did you guys get
the
the letter?
potential impact on the efforts that we're making to improve outcomes for students. So I can change the letter if I need to, but that's why I sent it out ahead of time.
Can I make a suggestion that maybe we'd like to input, the administration would like to input possibly specifics, details, more details, or give testimony. You know, I think it does reflect the major concerns. But I think having the data to back up those concerns in detail would be also a good idea.
Kim?
I do know that Representative Sibilia has 3 bills, I think, in House right now to take immediate action, and a district from down in that area has sent a request to legislators and the VSBA to pursue this for immediate impact. And I think, you know, people are trying to be thoughtful about how to be responsive. So to the extent, I think we are wise to take action on sending a letter and having our voices be heard in this as well. I think it would be impossible to be strategic about implementing this year. Those budgets have been warned. All that would happen is taxes would go down in those communities without any impact on investment for those students. There's another piece, I think, that's being considered for a 3-year implementation, and I think that might be in Senate right now. And so it is really important that we may need to do actual sit in front of them and testify. We and CVUS or CVSD and MMU, USD, whatever they are among the biggest hit in Chittenden County, and there
I think
are
South Burlington, maybe some hit, but probably half of what MMU, Champlain Valley,
and Essex
gets.
Burlington and Winooski would be
Burlington,
benefiting.
Winooski have already submitted resolutions. I feel like we need to get something there now. If we want to follow up with something further, we could do that.
And I would encourage that we copy VSBA, VSA, that those organizations are aware of the voices that we've lent to the process. I think I'm really appreciative that Aaron imparted the concerns around Act 173. The State Board of Ed tomorrow will adopt rules to go into the rules process. Completely silent of this because the advisory group everybody just got the report.
Right.
And with the anticipation that there was no real way to understand its impact on this, but the rules process has to begin, and the rules are in a state where they will continue to take, hear input, but the process will begin and be voted on out of the state board into the process tomorrow. Tomorrow. But
that's different now.
It is different. That's not the weighting study, but the rules that impact the census-based funding for special education will be voted out to the complete process, the first draft or whatever it's called. I know that there are official words for all of this, but the rules, as the state board will put them forth into the official process, will be voted on tomorrow, having had input from the agency for months and input from the advisory group for months, although without any reference to the weighting study or this maintenance of effort concern. So we have to, I think, stay on top of it. I don't believe most people think it's strategic or thoughtful to react in this year, but there is a full court press happening out of the southern part of the state right now.
And according to, I talked to Philip Ruth last week when I taught him, you can put your hand down, I'm coming to you next. I talked to Philip Ruth last week, and I think he understands that he feels something needs to happen. He feels it needs to be multi-year. But he says he's getting a lot of pressure from the Northeast Kingdom as well. Todd?
Yeah, I was just wanting to make sure that the estimate we have in the letter of 40 cents is correct. Because based on what Kim sent out, that looked high. So I just wanted to make sure we're not
So I today got, I don't think anybody had it before today. I just happened to have been on a call before this where this link was shared, the Vermont Legislative Joint Fiscal Office. The study incorporates numbers from 2018. And that was what they did the study based on before all the unifications. The numbers that I just sent out were the best estimates of the Joint Fiscal Office taking that data and imposing it on 2020 numbers.
Right. But the 40 cents comes from the study itself.
And then this would be reflective of imposing those weights from the study on the 2020 numbers. So they probably are different. I didn't look that closely to see what they were.
But I think we're perfectly within, I think it's perfectly legitimate to quote numbers that come
Yeah, I
directly.
didn't read the appendix of the study, so I didn't see that part. I just want to make sure we're not over-exaggerating something.
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
It's still pretty bad.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Al has some ideas about some further things we might think about, but is everyone okay for now with sending the letter as it is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. So the other thing I learned from Senator Pruitt is that the language we need around the election of school board members is in the miscellaneous ed bill, and it's in as a permanent fix without a sunset. Now, that has a long way to go, but at least it's in there. So, lots of things going on. I sat in on a discussion of pre-K. They're struggling with pieces of that bill. There's a literacy bill, lots of controversy around that. Kim's been there's conversations about the State Board of Education that Kim's been taking part in.
And proficiency-based learning as well has been a hot topic. So in a year when I think both committees, education committees, thought it would be a low-impact education year, it turns out it's been about as busy as I can recall it being. But so with proficiency-based learning, there's a bill out there to remove the requirement for proficiency-based graduation requirements. I think that's in-house. I haven't looked closely at it. And I think they've taken a lot of testimony that said don't knee-jerk react or impose how things should be reported in terms of what a transcript should look like or otherwise, but that looking closely at what is happening in areas where it's more mature and maybe looking to share that more efficiently and effectively than has been. So I'm not, the State Board of Ed took hours of testimony on it last month, and we're going to vote on sort of our report out on that tomorrow. And we captured some themes on all ends of the spectrum of people's opinions around that, but generally I think the bigger problems are around people's opinions of the grading piece. So, and the State Board of Ed piece is consideration for redefining roles and responsibilities, because the Secretary of Education doesn't report to the State Board of Ed, and that had long since not been the case. He reports to the governor, but the law really hasn't reflected better definition of roles and responsibilities. So that is being considered with a range of opinions on that topic as well.
There's actually an excellent, or let me say, thought-provoking op-ed in VT Digger today about proficiency-based graduation and the potential inequities, because there's so much difference from school to school in what's being required to get a diploma. it's worth reading
Yeah.
because it makes you think about it in a different way. Okay, any other local or statewide updates?
I got enough.
Okay.
Right?
Anything? Are we good? Oh my gosh, it's 8. All right, so we aren't together again until March 10th. Fill out your meeting evaluation, fill out the doodle poll, fill out the sign-up sheet for talking about the
For us to
budget.
sign at the same time, and we didn't.
Back.
Thank you.
That's my pen.
Yes,
Or math, I don't know.
thank you, and we are adjourned.